Hello everybody. So in this video I want to talk briefly about 5 Bitcoin treasury companies, right? BTC stands for Bitcoin Treasury Companies. I want to talk about which is best. I'm not going to have a definitive winner. It will be for you to decide, but you'll tell me what you think in the comment section, I'm sure. Before I dive into these BTC treasury companies, just note that, yeah, they're not doing well today. And you know, it's very annoying because Bitcoin was about to break 109. Everything, everything was great. And then, you know, these war tensions happened. And unfortunately, people seem to be wanting to own fiat during times of war. If you read any of the Bitcoin books, you will know that fiat is the last thing you want to own in war. It is the first thing to debase, but for some reason people are selling the most pristine asset, Bitcoin, and actually they're selling gold too. I cannot understand why gold is down today. I don't really get it. It's crazy. It seems like people want to buy fiat today. I absolutely don't get this. But anyways, let's not lose sight of long term. Long term is what matters. If you look at the past 10 years, compare Bitcoin to gold over the past 10 years, gold was about 10% a year for 10 years. Bitcoin was 66% a year for 10 years. But today is a bad day for Bitcoin. And when you have a bad day with Bitcoin, you even have a worse day with Bitcoin treasury companies because they are seen as leveraged by the market. Now, I use the term they are seen as leveraged because most of these companies actually have a tremendous amount of permanent capital. Most of them are still mostly an ATM story. I think we're moving away from the ATM phase of MicroStrategy, but it's been mostly an ATM story. But in the media, of course, they never report it's an ATM story. They report it's a debt story, even though the leverage is very often under 10% for many of these companies. Let's talk about MSTR. So first, let's begin with MSTR. MSTR is the blue chip Bitcoin treasury company. Over the past 5 years, ever since they adopted the BTC treasury company model, over the past 5 years, they've achieved 100% a year for, let's call it 5 years, 4.87 years. So for 5 years, 102% a year. Bitcoin, on the other hand, returned 50% a year for over the past 5 years. So it doubled the return of Bitcoin on an annualized basis. But of course, when you compound that, you get much more than a double. Total return was 600% for Bitcoin, 3,000% for MicroStrategy. Pretty nuts. MicroStrategy right now is trading at a 1.67 MNAV. It's getting into the cheap category here. It's getting a little cheaper, isn't it? Wait, right? 1.67. How much lower are we gonna go? The lowest I've seen it in this rally, in this bull run. The lowest I've seen it was 1.45. Will we go to 1.45? I don't know. I have no idea where these tensions are headed and what's gonna happen to the price of Bitcoin. I just don't think it's high. I don't think 1.65 is high for the blue chip in the sector. You get Semler, you get the star CEO, you get the one who pioneered the BTC treasury business, the Bitcoin treasury company business. And the narrative is strong against MicroStrategy right now. And the narrative is, oh, he won't grow his bag as fast, right? That's a strong narrative. He won't grow his bag as fast. He has 592,000 Bitcoin. How quickly can he grow it? And you may know that this narrative is very common with big companies. Once companies get big, you always have this narrative for people to push small caps. And you know, small caps in the grand scheme of things, historically, if you go very, very long time ago, if you look at the data for like 100 years, and because of course the problem is big tech has skewed that data, but before big tech, it was true for the longest time that the smallest companies were actually growing more quickly. That was true for the longest time, and there's still that sentiment in the market that smaller is better, smaller will grow quickly. I don't have anything to say about this. What I always say is, are you so sure about that? Are you so sure about that? While all of the BTC treasury companies are doing the convertible debt, they're doing the ATM, mostly the ATM. Semler is already playing the next game. He's already playing the next game, which is draining the bond market from money, and that's the chart that I always show. He's doing less and less common share ATM, less and less issuance of new common share, and that's understandable at 1.67. It's you get a little less right now. It's not a very good thing to do that, but he's doing more and more strife and stride. And he's really the first one to have found a way to tap into the bond market. And the bond market is a much bigger pool of capital than the equity market. And so the question I always say is, are you so sure? Can he do $1 billion a week in preferred? Well, guess what? If he does $1 billion a week in preferred, he has about 60 billion worth of Bitcoin. Less now that Bitcoin's dropped, so let's call it 55 billion worth of Bitcoin. For 52 weeks, if he raises $1 billion a week in prefers, boom, you've just doubled the bag if Bitcoin stays at the same price. And of course, that's a big if Bitcoin stays at the same price. But Bitcoin, I mean, this rally in Bitcoin is late. I mean, it is getting late, right? And we keep getting macro events. We had the tariffs. That was the big macro event that held us back, and now we have war tensions, another macro event taking us back, and you know, it's really unfortunate because before that we had the operations. I mean, the former administration, we had all of the politicians against it. Now we have all of the politicians in favor of Bitcoin, but now it's macro. In the past, we had all of the politicians against Bitcoin, but we didn't really have any macro issues. It's annoying, but it's a long-term game. This is what I always say. This is why the main way to play this is long-term. Long-term options are very tough to time, even in a 2 to 3 year basis. They are very, very tough to time, as people who say play on options on Tesla, for example, well know. So anyways, Metaplanet. Let's talk about Metaplanet. So Japan's PD Bitcoin Treasury companies, as I'm gonna call it. It's become almost consensus thinking right now in the market. If you read social, right, that Metaplanet is kind of the best bucket for new money at this point. That seems to be consensus thinking. I own Metaplanet. I entered in the $4 range, unfortunately, because it took 5 days to get the money there, and they have all these restrictions. This is one of these that is tough to buy. It's not on Robinhood. It's not on a lot of modern broker with modern UI. You have to pay a $50 fee just to place an order. It's kind of ridiculous. But anyways, if you access it, people seem to like it a lot. I like it a lot myself. I've covered them multiple times. I think I made 4 videos about them already, or something like that, because they're kind of in the sweet spot, right? They have 10,000 Bitcoin. Their bag is therefore medium size. It's a medium size bag, and so it's easy to imagine the company go from 10,000 to 20,000 to 210,000, and that's something that is seen as the market as more achievable than Semler doubling the Bitcoin. And that's why this stock is hot right now, right? That's why it's trading at a 7x multiple MNAV, 7x MNAV. That's an expensive stock, but that high MNAV reflects how quickly the market thinks they will be able to double the bag, and it's been very impressive. They've roughly doubled their bag every quarter, so that's been very impressive. I personally think that the CEO Gerovich is very good. I've watched many of his interviews. Very good CEO, very sold on the idea of Bitcoin. I like him a lot. And you have the specificity of Japan, which is Japan is yield starved, and they can't really buy Bitcoin as is because it's taxed heavily, something like 55%. On the other hand, they can buy a stock that holds Bitcoin in a retirement account and get taxed at 0%. And so that is some of the key difference for Metaplanet. Yeah, I think Metaplanet is kind of in this perfect zone where everything's going for it. Now, watch out, right? If we get a big bear market in Bitcoin, if Bitcoin goes back to 80,000, like I see a lot of people chatting about on X, yeah, this is a stock that's going to fall harder technically, because if Bitcoin falls, these things are volatile. It's you don't get the outsized returns that, say, a stock like MicroStrategy has provided. I mean, MicroStrategy has changed lives. It's literally changed a lot of lives, this stock. A lot of people have retired thanks to this stock. You don't get these returns without crazy volatility. The volatility is the return. The more volatile a stock is, the more opportunity you have for return. Volatility is vitality. You know, look at stocks like Amazon. Amazon hasn't gone anywhere recently. It's not volatile. There's not much going on, right? So it's the price to pay. So watch out below, but also watch out to the top, because it can go up or go down very fast, and you got to be comfortable with volatility. And you know, and I think a lot of people on my channel are comfortable with volatility, right? I mean, I'm a growth investor. Think about the volatility we've had on a stock like HIMS. We've been buying HIMS since $6. We even joke about it in the comment section about volatility. Oh yeah, get ready. Anyways, people in Bitcoin, same thing. I ramble. Let me go back on topic. Let's talk about Semler now. Semler. Okay, I have two things about Semler. The market is probably inefficient about here. There's probably some inefficiencies in the market right here, as there always is. You know, don't go tell me the market is efficient. No, it's not. Warren Buffett always says the reason why he's rich is because MBA students are still taught the market efficient hypothesis, right? The EMH. Anyways, the point is. Yeah, it's trading below the Bitcoin bag, well below the Bitcoin bag. Now it's 118% of Semler is Bitcoin. And so why is it trading below the Bitcoin bag? Well, there's two things and that make me not like Semler very much. I don't like Semler very much because of two reasons. One of them is, and I can't really know that for sure, but when I look at the timing of their ATM, it seems to me like they've ATM'd when the price to NAV multiple was very close to a 1. So that makes no sense if you do that, right? If you ATM and you're look at Sailor. Sailor ATMs at a price to NAV of 1.6. That makes a lot of sense. You sell $1 for $1.60. That makes a lot of sense. ATMing right now for a company like Semler would make absolutely no sense because it's a 0.84. So you would be selling $1 for 0.84, right? And it seems to me like they've ATM'd. I think they were still positive, but only slightly. So I can't know exactly. I don't know for sure. But if they've ATM when they were only slightly positive, well, that gives me pause. That doesn't make too much sense. But I'm not sure about that. So you know, maybe they didn't. I don't know. That's point number one. Point number two is I was very excited about the settlement with the DOJ. So really quickly, Semler was a successful company. They had this device called QuantaFlow. It was being adopted by a bunch of hospitals. They were a successful medical device company. A lot of companies were in that situation, at successful medical devices. Come 2022, the Medicare CMS realized, okay, we're paying too much money now for these machines. And they stopped reimbursing everything. They stopped reimbursing everything, and they also, you know, found something to sue on marketing or whatever. Classic way companies die in this sector. The sector of health techs, health stocks, very risky because you have one decision maker who can kill your business. Well, that happened to Semler. That happened to, like I said, about a dozen companies. We're in a similar situation in this case. And Semler, of course, had moved on. They had settled, and for some reason, it seems to me like the settlement is not settled anymore, and they are in discussion again on this settlement. So now we have more fear into the stock being put back in, because what is it gonna have to be more than that? Is it gonna have to be more than 29 million now? So that big overhang, and you can see on the price, you can see on this, you can see when the stock popped. The stock popped right here when they had the settlement, and it seems to me like they're still in talks with that. You know, pay the fine already and move on. I don't know what's going on, and I don't follow it too closely. I don't follow Semler too closely. But you know, to me, I'm not too interested in this one right now. I'm not adding to this one right now, even though they had a successful medical product in the past. That medical product, unfortunately, is not as successful as it used to be, and this is an overhang. So to me, this is a no at this point. But moving on to KULR. So as you know, remember what I said, volatility is the price you pay for higher return. You have to be comfortable for volatility, especially if you're going to deal in Bitcoin, especially if you're going to deal in Bitcoin treasury companies. Anything at the edge, you have to be comfortable with volatility. And so that's the case of KULR. KULR went from the price of, 115, 116, 120. It was really stuck at around 110, 120 for weeks. And now it went back to 75 cents. And so, of course, I liked it at 120. I like it much more at 0.75 cents. I took opportunity to add to my leaps position on KULR on Monday. I firmly believe KULR is in this reverse split bad phase, reverse split bad narrative, reverse split bad phase. That's a phase they're in, and add to that the fact that they have a $300 million ATM coming to invest in Bitcoin. And you can see how the TradFi investor, how the normie Wall Street investor hates this, because they see reverse split, that's a bad signal, and then they see ATM, that's a bad signal to them. Now, I always put in the description of this video my common ATM math video. Please watch this video. It's a 5-minute video where I explain the common ATM math. And that's that's the video you need to watch if you want to understand why the 300 million ATM for KULR should be extremely accretive. Why? Because it's trading at a 2.43 MNAV, right? So that means you're gonna be printing dollars for 2.34. You're gonna be printing a dollar for 2.50 for $2.50. Each dollar you'll be printing for $2.50, right? And that's the reason why Metaplanet, if I go back to Metaplanet, it's the reason why Metaplanet is able to grow so fast, because Metaplanet is able to print a dollar for 7.32 is what Metaplanet is able to print a dollar for, right? Unfortunately, MicroStrategy is only able to print a dollar for 1.67. So the reason why I like this company very much is because they have a $300 million ATM. At this point, this means that this company is going to more than triple their Bitcoin bag. They could potentially more than triple their Bitcoin bag with this. So. And of course, if they ATM, of course, the price to NAV could go down a little further, a little more, but I still think this crash in the price here has a lot to do with the fact that reverse split bad, and that's just the narrative right now. And when I compare KULR actually to a company which I find very similar to Emprise grows a little bit faster than KULR. KULR grows the guided revenue growth for KULR this year. The guided revenue growth for KULR is 100%. CEO confirmed that on the call. Emprise seems to be growing at 190% or something like that. But they're in the same sector. They were both initially in California. Actually, if you look on the call, KULR and Emprise, they have a relationship together. They're developing products together, from what I understand. You look at the valuation of Emprise, it's the stock hasn't moved at all. The valuation is much higher than KULR. Their stock hasn't moved, and to me, the underlying to me is a similar technology. Like I said before, companies in the battery space are expensive. These are expensive technologies, and a lot of people own these stocks on their own. And that's kind of the tension that I see with KULR. Is if you look at the call, if you look at the conference call, all of the analysts are asking about the battery business. So I think a lot of a shareholder base of KULR is not in KULR for the Bitcoin treasury business. They're in KULR for the battery business. And so if you're in KULR only for the battery business, and you see this thing happening where they do a reverse split because they want to have more institutional ownership, and you think split is bad because you think they do the split because it means they're struggling. That's point number one. And then you see this happening for 300 million ATM, you have a hard time imagining that ATM is for Bitcoin. Like, that ATM is actually for Bitcoin, right? But you if you don't follow too closely the ATM for this company, you may think, that ATM is because they're doing so bad. The company's doing so bad, they need to do the ATM, the cash runway, they're going to run out of cash, etc., etc. This is a company that's losing money, of course. Their cash flow negative, but that's not too shocking in this space, in this field. It's not too shocking. This is still an early company at the edge of the technology. And of course, KULR specializes as the name implies, in a super cool batteries, in super cool, not super fun, but like super cool, like minus 50 degrees Celsius. That's what they specialize in. These very long-term batteries that have to like keep energy over very multiple years, and they have to go in very cold environments like on Mars. A very technical thing to do, not that easily replaced, and so that's why. But anyways, to me that drop is unwarranted. Like I said, I've added yesterday. We'll see how bad Bitcoin gets. I might even add more. We'll see. Of course it's all within position sizing, but unfortunately my MicroStrategy position is always going to be the biggest position in BTC Treasury companies. Not unfortunately. Fortunately, I'm happy about it. But I'm just saying it's because I will never sell it, right? I will never sell MSTR because otherwise the tax bill would be too high. Remember on this channel, we were buying MSTR at like $20 a share pre-split, about $25 a share pre-split. So, Anyways, the last stock I want to talk about is Mara. Let's talk about Mara. The ridiculousness continues on Mara, and Mara it is kind of ridiculous because this one, they have a lot of assets, they have land, they have access to power, they even have a wind farm, they have, of course, more than 50 exahash of mining equipment, of old mining equipment. I know, we all know the mining equipment of Mara is old, but first of all, the mining equipment. Well, guess what? You can still make money if electricity is cheap or free. And this is the point that Mara has been doing. Mara has been using near-free electricity to still make money on the mining. And if you point to me to say the gap accounting and you're like, look, they're losing so much money, well, it's gap accounting. Amortization and depreciation is not a real expense. It's a phantom expense. It's important to not confuse, astute accounting with actual economic matters and actual economic profitability of the business. To me, this makes no sense. All of their stuff is trading less than they're trading at the value of a Bitcoin, and the market is not giving them any credit for any of their stuff. No credit whatsoever. Keep in mind, Mara also has some backlash from hardcore Bitcoiners, from original Bitcoiners. They're having some backlash because they're writing things on the blockchains, on the Bitcoin blockchain, like spam, for example, that a lot of the Bitcoin purists really dislike because they want to be able to keep running the blockchain on a little node that you can buy at home, and the blockchain is becoming too heavy. So, for example, Mara did an encryption to commemorate the Bitcoin president, for example. They did an inscription on the blockchain, and I remember the Bitcoin maxis were really upset about that. Anyways, this is too technical on finish it, but you have people who dislike it because Mara, like a lot of miners, Mara doesn't have an issue with spam because that's how you make money with the fees, right? But that's the game. That's the miners for you. Anyways, the point is, I think it's way too cheap. So, like I said, there's the mining equipment. So, about the value of the mining equipment, think about this. Mara would stop mining today. Imagine they stop mining today. They would have electricity access. That's worth a lot of money today with data centers. They would have that wind farm that they bought. They would have, of course, the buildings. They would have the miners. And the miners would obviously not be worth a lot of money, but they would still hold money to someone who can get free electricity, like a nation state. So I have very little doubt that we will be able to get some money for these old miners. And most importantly, and I'll conclude with this, they have the transformers. If you look at any miner, you have about 80% of value of a miner that goes to zero, but the transformer doesn't go to zero, right? The transformer is one of the bottlenecks, and these big mining companies, they can reuse their transformers, and they have a lot of money in transformers, which is also something that people forget entirely whenever they look at BTC miner, Bitcoin miners, and Mara at this point. The final reason why do I talk about Mara? Of course, why do I talk about Mara in a Bitcoin Treasury company video? Because Mara is the only one that has actually followed the playbook, right? They haven't sold. And you remember my video on CleanSpark, me being disappointed in CleanSpark selling a tiny share of that Bitcoin. So Mara hasn't sold, and they did a convertible bond to buy the Bitcoin. They did a convertible bond to buy the Bitcoin. So they are BTC Treasury company. Of course, they can't do ATM at a 1x NAV. It's not possible for them to do the ATM. So but I see some better narratives on Mara developing. Like a lot of people are saying, well, you know what, someone will acquire them at this point because the value is becoming obvious. I mean, in my view, the value is becoming pretty obvious on Mara. So anyways, this was not financial advice. This is not investment advice. This is only entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.